Caesar is home.
Hey, Shalom Israel, Bishop Nathaniel here. Tonight we went to see War for the Planet of the Apes. It's a great movie. You guys are going to like it, but there's a lot of spoiler alerts. So if you didn't see the movie, you might want to wait before you watch this video. Deacon Yawasop was there with me, Deacon Ithan, Captain Isaac, Captain Zeph, and Officer Joel, and Officer Jan. Many of you may or may not know The Planet of the Apes was written by two Edomites, Arthur P. Jacobs and what's the other guy's name? Pierre, I thought I wrote it, Pierre Boulez. Pierre Boulez. The screenplay was written by Rod Serling, the author of Twilight Zone. Mm-hmm. The movie, believe it or not, is based upon black people. Yes. That's right. We said it. It's all about black people. Your mama, my mama, all of us is talking about us, and we're gonna prove that. Captain Isaac, you have something?
Yeah, it's not. To some people, it's far fetched that this movie is talking about so-called blacks. The original Planet of the Apes, Conquest of the Apes, came out during the 70s, and it was based. The producers, you can go online and find out yourself. The producers said that they based the movie off the Watts riot, so it is based on black and white people.
Exactly. Now, I'm going to show you the cover of a book that I got. I didn't bring it with me. It's called Planet of the Apes as American Myth, Race, Politics, and Popular Culture by Eric Green. So you can zoom in on that, but, post-production, you can do what you're going to do. But anyway, what I want to do, I'm going to read an excerpt from the book on page 16 of the same book. It says, Planet of the Apes as American Myth. It says, for example, screenwriter Paul Ding's statement that the ape uprising and conquest of the Planet of the Apes is like the Watts riot, which is what Captain Isaac was saying. I'm on page 16. I'm going to put the excerpt up so you can read it yourself. It's a metaphoric comparison in which the film's climax is the principal subject and the Watts riot is the subsidiary subject. Turner points out that rather than single things out, both subjects in the type of comparison are in fact multivocal symbols, whole semantic systems which bring into relation a number of ideas, images, statements, sentiments, values, and stereotypes. Now I'm going to go to another page. Bear with me a second. I'm on page, what page is this? Same page. It says, metaphoric comparisons also work both ways. What I want to get out of here. The actual event may be reread through the film's images and ideological charge. A film may problemize commonly accepted ideas by offering different interpretations to counter traditional views of historical occurrences or by presenting an honored icon in a new light. Let me jump down. For instance, it may be more than rote repetition of the images of the Watts riots. It may, in fact, provide a key for rereading the Watts riots as a justifiable violent reaction to intolerable violent oppression rather than just an outbreak of lawless abandon. All right, so many of you may know that during the 60s, the late 60s, early 70s, they put out 5 movies. Planet of the Apes, then Beneath the Planet of the Apes, then Escape from the Planet of the Apes, then Conquest of the Planet of the Apes, and then Battle for the Planet of the Apes. So now they're redoing it again, and you're going to see many symbolisms in the movie. What was the first one? Rise of the Planet of the Apes. So let's talk about that first before we lead into today's movie, War of the Planet of the Apes. So what happened in the first one?
Well, in Rise, you had scientists, and they were doing experiments on the monkeys, and basically to increase their intelligence, there was called the Genesis Project, in which basically the Genesis serum, or this experimental stuff, pretty much heightened the intelligence of the monkeys and had a negative effect on the humans, making them sick and dying from it. And that's pretty much...
He was trying to cure his father,
right,
Alzheimer's.
But it was a cure for Alzheimer's, pretty much, and basically had a negative effect. Rather than cure Alzheimer's, basically brought death upon humans and increase the intelligence and intellect of the apes.
So do you think it was an accident or coincidence that the name of the lab was called Genesis?
No, not at all.
You're going to find out that these scholars, these people that put these movies together, they do a lot of research on biblical references. You're going to find a lot of biblical references along with historical things that affected black and Latin people. And they put it together.
The black man also that was in charge of the apes of the whole thing, his name was Jacob.
Right.
It was Jacob's apes.
Right.
Exactly.
And also with, when Caesar, the main character of the ape of the movie, he was trying to basically gather the monkeys together. All the monkeys were pretty much disorganized and wild in the very beginning.
Like
Wild.
black people.
Right.
Wild, disorganized.
Right. So he said, "What can I do?" He was sitting there with his friend Maurice, the orangutan, and he's watching the scene. He's watching the monkeys interact with each other, and then he had a stick. He had 2 sticks. He had 1 stick, and he broke it. He goes, and we're divided, we're weak. And he goes, together, we're strong. That's the 2 sticks in Ezekiel. And then as he's saying it, the monkeys start fighting each other. And then his monkey friend looks at him and goes, apes are stupid. And he walks off. And that inspired him to take the Genesis vial and to give life into the apes. And they all gained the intelligence, but the breath of life entered into them when they began to rise.
Right. Can we read that in Genesis 2 and 7? Because when Caesar escapes from the zoo, he goes to the lab. He gets the Genesis capsules. He punctures it. And this was after the orangutan said apes are stupid.
Yep.
Because he was trying to counter when he said divided we're weak, together we're strong.
Right.
And then, like you said, he said, listen, apes are stupid.
Yep.
They can't unite, they cannot come together, which is all symbolic of black and Latin people. We're an ignorant, uncivilized, disorganized
Without the Bible.
people without the Bible. Right. So now read that in Genesis 2 and 7.
Got it, Joel?
Yes, sir. Genesis chapter 2, verse 7. And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life.
So the breath of life represents God's laws, statutes, and commandments. Like, for example, get John 20 and verse 22. Let me show you about the spirit. Because when you see the first movie, which, what was it again? Rise of the Planet of Apes. When he lets the capsule go, you see a mist, a smoke, while the apes are all sleeping and they're inhaling this spirit. And it's like a spirit. Go ahead, read that.
John 20, verse 22. And when he had said this, he breathed on them, and saith unto them, Receive ye the Holy Ghost.
Receive ye the Holy Ghost, meaning the Holy Spirit. Now, watch this. Get Revelation 11, verse 11.
Revelation chapter 11, verse 11. And after 3 days and a half, the Spirit of life from God entered into them. And they stood upon their feet, and great fear fell upon them which saw them.
Now, in the movie, remember when they all got that Genesis effect, that spirit came on them. When they was coming back into the zoo, Caesar was checking all their eyes to see if they had wisdom in their eyes. Then he was uniting them together. Well, oh, you know what we missed? Before that, remember Cookie Rocky?
Cookie, yep.
We forgot Cookie.
The bully.
The bully monkey,
Right.
the bully chimp, was in there. He was like a pimp.
Yeah.
He was like a pimp monkey, getting his nails done, everybody honoring him. So when he saw Caesar, he got jealous and mad. He beat the hell out of
Took the
Caesar.
sweater off.
Took the sweat, ripped his clothes off. Who do you think you are? Then,
Buck was in a cage.
yeah,
The
Caesar
throne.
had a plan.
Yeah.
He said there was a big, giant black
Buck.
razor. What's it called?
Buck.
Silverback.
Yeah.
A silverback buck monkey gorilla.
From the cage, yeah.
And he said, if I could get that big dude on my side, I could get this guy. He opened the cage, and the big silverback was scared to pass the line. The line was there. Because he never been past that. So Caesar was telling him, like this, come on. Then he got the courage, and he ran out. And he was so happy. He became a friend to Caesar. So now Caesar said, I got him on my side. I'm going to get this dude, Cookie. Popped him upside the head. Cookie comes out, and the gorilla makes Cookie humble himself to Caesar. But that wasn't it after that.
Right.
Caesar gets cookies and gives Cookie one. He eats it, then he gives him the bag, and he goes like this, meaning share with your brothers.
Right.
And he didn't want to do it at first, and Caesar was like, Then it was like he took one hand, he handed it around. He was showing them when in retrospect, get that Leviticus 19 about how to love your neighbor, because this chimp named Cookie was selfish and self-centered. He didn't care about no other ape but himself.
Right.
And this is the same thing that goes on amongst our people. Read that.
Leviticus chapter 19, verse 17. Thou shalt not hate thy brother in thy heart. Thou shalt in any wise rebuke thy neighbor, and not suffer sin upon him. Thou shalt not avenge, nor bear any grudge against the children of thy people. But thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself.
See that? Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thy. That's what Caesar was teaching Cookie to do. Loving his fellow neighbor as he loves himself. And that's what we got to do with our own people. That's why Christ said to Peter, do you love me? He said, yes, Lord, I love you. He didn't feed my sheep. He said, feed them. So what else happened in that one?
Towards the end, well, towards the
Well, before you get to the end, there was a scene remember when Caesar was locked up in the cage and his owner came to get him,
Yeah.
Right.
and his owner was trying to take him out,
Right.
and then he was about to, but then he stepped back. He looked at the other apes. They were locked up, and if he would have went with his owner, he knew that he would have betrayed them. He would have
Right.
let them down. They was dependent on him. So he said, "Nah, you know what? I'm gonna suffer with my people."
Right. And you know, when you remember you mentioned when Caesar broke the sticks and
Yes.
put them together. Can we read that in Ezekiel 37? To show you, we're going to show you the symbolism in the movie. So if you didn't see the first one, go back and look at it again. Ezekiel 37 and verse 15 to 19.
Ezekiel chapter 37, verse 15. The word of the Lord came again unto me, saying, Moreover, thou son of man, take thee one stick, and write upon it, for Judah and for the children of Israel his companions.
So write upon it for Judah and the children of Israel, his companions. That included Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. Go ahead.
Then take another stick, and write upon it, for Joseph, the stick of Ephraim, and for all the house of Israel his companions.
So the stick of Joseph was given into the hand of Ephraim. His companions was Manasseh, Simeon, Reuben, Gad, Issachar, Naphtali, Asher, Gad, Zebulon. Am I forgetting anybody? Naphtali. We said Naphtali. So those were his companions. Read on.
And join them one to another
And joined them one to another
into one stick.
into one stick. Was that down to 19?
And they shall become one in thy hand.
And they shall become one in thine hand. Go ahead.
And when the children of thy people shall speak unto thee, saying, Wilt thou not show us what thou meanest by these? Say unto them, Thus saith the Lord God, Behold, I will take the stick of Joseph, which is in the hand of Ephraim, and the tribes of Israel his fellows, and will put them with him, even with the stick of Judah, and make them one stick, and they shall be one in my
And
hand.
make them one stick, and they shall be one in my hand. That's why we have the 12 tribes sign with us when we teach. The two sticks joined together. Guess what? That's the same thing. Watch this. I'm going to show you something. Go to Romans 11. Romans 11 is talking about the same thing in verse 17. And this is where the Apostle Paul got it from. This is where the movie writers got it for with Caesar. He said, put them sticks together, join them, make them one. Go ahead.
Romans 11, verse 17. And if some of the branches be broken off,
If some of the branches, meaning some of the Israelites were broken off,
and thou, being a wild olive
the
tree,
wild olive tree were those scattered Israelites raised in Greco-Roman customs. Go ahead.
were grafted in among them,
Were what?
were grafted in among them,
That's what Ezekiel 37 is talking about, the grafting in of the two sticks. Go ahead.
and with them partakers of the root,
And they became partakers of the root. Go ahead.
and fatness of the olive
And fatness
tree.
of the olive tree. Was that it? Jump down to verse 26. Because you know what? People say, no, this is talking about all other nations. Verse 26 clears up who it's talking about. Read that,
Verse 26. And so all Israel shall be saved.
So what's the whole chapter talking about? Read it again.
And so all Israel shall be saved.
That's what the grafting in is about. All Israel being saved. That's what it's talking about. The elect of Israel being saved. Was that the whole verse?
As it is written,
Uh-huh.
there shall come out of Zion the deliverer, and shall turn away ungodliness from
Did it
Jacob,
say take away ungodliness from Esau and Ishmael and Ham?
and shall turn away ungodliness from Jacob.
The whole chapter's talking about Jacob. The whole chapter's Israel. So what are they talking about? What are they talking about in these other these churches and some of these camps? Insane. So now, was there something else y'all wanted to add to that? In the first one, we still on the first one.
Well, time back.
His captors, his owner was Esau, and his girlfriend was Persian.
Mm-hmm.
So those are our slave masters.
Right, exactly. Now, I gotta give me Zephaniah 2. I gotta hit this one. The theme of all of the Planet of the Apes is unity. Unity. And this is a common theme throughout the Bible that most people don't understand. Read that.
Zephaniah 2 verse 1. Gather yourselves together, yea, gather together, O nation not desired.
We are a nation not desired. Caesar realized in the movie they were treated like animals. They were subhumans. 3/5 of a man.
Right. They said that.
It's the same thought. So in the Bible it's saying, gather yourselves together. Watch this. Listen to this for you skeptics. Back to this book, Planet of the Apes, as American myth, race, politics, and popular culture. Watch this. Listen good to this. I'm on page 24 of this book. We're going to put it up. It says, white fear of racial apocalypse in the Americas can be traced back as far as the colonial period when the colonists felt themselves encircled by the dark, savage Indians. Now watch this. Wait a minute. Let me go to the next page. I'm jumping ahead. Wait a minute. Bear with me a second. Okay. I'm on page 31. It says, this first glimpse into the ape racial power structure is telling. The baboons of the early draft have been removed and replaced by gorillas, who are limited to military service and low-skilled manual labor. Their opportunities have been constrained in much the same way as those of African Americans. And like African Americans, they have been maneuvered into low-status service jobs. What you gonna say about that? What are you gonna say about that? So go ahead. So now y'all want to move on to the next one?
No, the end of the last one, the end of the first one. The end is when he gets to the park, and then his master comes with the leash, and he says to him, to Caesar, "Come home, Caesar. It's time to come home." And then he goes up to him. He stands up upright upon his feet. Goes back to Revelations 11, and he says, "There's master's ear." He goes, "Caesar is home. He's among his own." This goes back to Zephaniah 2 and 1, being among your own people gathering together. And when he stood up, all the other apes stood upright as men. And that part was the most captivating part of the movie to me. Yeah.
So they followed his example.
Right.
Great. Okay, so that was
Rise.
That was Rise of the Planet of the Apes. So then came
Dawn.
Dawn. Okay, but we want to talk about the one today, right? Want to jump ahead? Was there something in Dawn that y'all want to talk about?
Esau kept pursuing us.
Esau kept pursuing, white man kept pursuing
Right.
us.
Right, and you had Koba, uncooperative Koba, who was bitter. You had
Oh, yeah,
Koba,
yeah.
his right hand man at the time. He was in part 1. He's one that killed Jacob in part 1. He pushed the helicopter over
Right.
because he was done so wrongly by the humans that he
Torturing him.
They were torturing him. He held that bitterness, right? He held that bitterness inside of him to the point where he turned against his own people. He was so bitter and enraged by the atrocities, which is understandable, the afflictions, but it began to corrupt him, and he ended up becoming Caesar's opposition. And basically, the monkeys were divided because the Koba caused a division between Caesar and Koba, and that caused a division, which led to the division of the apes in this present one in war, the Planet of the Apes. Right. So,
Okay. So now we're in
War of the Planet of the Apes.
War of the Planet of the Apes. That's the one that just came out.
Right.
Okay, so hit it. What happened?
War of the Planet of the Apes. Oh, wow. War of the Planet of the Apes was very good. It basically takes place, I believe, 15 years later.
Yes.
15 years later, and the monkeys, well, Caesar and the rest of the monkeys are living in peace, peacefully. But in the beginning, it shows the humans hunting the monkeys as usual, and apes this side are aiding them. You have apes in the sunken place, aiding the humans in hunting their own kind. All right, and they had bywords and all kinds of donkey written in the back of their on their backs, and you had the soldiers had a thing called monkey killer on back of their helmets. And
Only good
ape is a dead one.
Yeah.
You know,
they were also branded with Greek letters,
Alpha and Omega.
You know, and it's the same thing that happened to us in slavery. We were branded as well.
Right.
You know.
So the traders, those like the albino,
Winter.
his name was Winter.
Mm-hmm.
Can we get that Matthew 24, 9 and 10? Because Christ spoke about that. Traders against their own people. And they called those traders donkeys. Another word for donkey is ass or jackass. Okay. Read that.
Matthew chapter 24, verse 9. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another.
You see, that's the part we want. And shall betray one another. That's what they showed in the movie today, War of the Planet of the Apes. Betraying one another. You see, that was a common theme throughout the movie.
And he also was offended because remember, was it Cornelius? Him and another ape, they surveyed the land, so they found good land where they were going to move to.
Right. It was Rocket.
That was Blue Eyes, which was Caesar's son.
Right.
Blue Eyes.
Oh, that's what it was. Right.
Yeah. And Cookie.
Cookie.
Right. Yeah.
And Winter said, "Let's go now. Let's go now." And they
Right.
said, "No, we can't go right now." And he said, he got offended.
Right.
And that's when he betrayed them.
He was
Right.
afraid.
Right. He was afraid. So
Fear.
his fear
Fear.
caused him to betray his own people.
That's heavy.
Mm-hmm.
See, but in every when you get to the Bible, in every period there was always a coon or what you would call a traitor. During the time of Moses, you had traitors. During the time of Mattathias, you had the Israelite brother that went on the altar and wanted to sacrifice in front of the Greeks. During Christ's time, you had Judas, and during this time, you're gonna have traitors. You're gonna have coons. Just like in the movie, Esau knew that, so that's why he put those guys in the movie. He know that.
Right.
So now you said coons. There's a phrase called tycoons. You ever heard the word tycoon? What does it mean, a tycoon? Y'all know what a tycoon is?
wealth.
A person of wealth. But in this movie, just like today, when we refer to our people who are tycoons, like black tycoons, tie meaning, listen good, T-I-E, black tie coons. That's what they are. You know what a black tie affair is?
Yep.
Right.
Wealthy people, and announce with our people, they are black tycoons. These dudes ain't right. I know that went over some of your heads what I said, but you're gonna think about it. You'll be all right. You'll be all right. I thought still didn't get it. You're gonna be okay.
I got it.
There was another scene in the movie, Second Ezra 6 verse 9, where in the background on I think it was a fuel tank,
It's
Yeah.
and on their
and on their headstone.
Yeah, they had the symbolism.
Yeah.
The Greek letters.
Yeah,
A and Alpha, Omega.
it said in the beginning and the end, but the word beginning was in black, and the end was in red. So this scripture came to my mind. Second Ezra 6 verse 9. Read that.
Second Ezra chapter 6, verse 9. For Esau is the end of the world.
So Esau is the so-called white man according to the Bible. Esau is the progenitor of all Caucasians on the face of this planet. Read.
And Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth.
So Esau is the end of the world, and Esau is the red man. That's why in the movie it said the end in red, but the beginning was black lettering, and where it said the end was red lettering, it was highlighted in red. All right, so the so-called white man, he knows the Bible. All right, he knows that after his kingdom goes down, our kingdom is going to go up. All right, and it's the same thing that they portrayed in this movie. All right, the human race got wiped out, those soldiers that were there, and then the apes took over. Made me laugh at that. All right, so yeah. All right.
I wanted to play this for you. That's why I hit it. I'm gonna turn it up. I don't know if the volume will be that good, but we're gonna listen just a few minutes. Just listen good.
And from the late 1960s, after the death of Martin Luther King and the riots and the upheavals and all like this, and black people with their fist in there and all like that, and trying to stumble and fumble and find their way and get focus, the white supremacists made a blueprint and put it into action, and that is, I'm going to have these people so confused, they don't even know what they started out to do. And by the late 1970s, they had just about completed it. And we've been on that ever since. And you mentioned something very important. They are more comfortable than ever. But see, it's like making gorillas comfortable in a cage, or monkeys, or pandas. You still got them in a cage, but they're comfortable. See, so give him some bling bling. It's like giving an animal a brand new car and training the animal to ride up and down the street in it. And then you stand back and point at the animal. Like one white man said in the late 1950s. He said he doesn't care what kind of car a Negro has. He said he's still a nigger. And when he rides by in a shiny car, to him, it's just a monkey in a car. White people built a car, put a monkey in it, trained the monkey to drive the car, so now you're looking at a monkey in a car. See, but black people don't see themselves that way. But this is how the white supremacists see us, and they are the ones who run our business. And we have to know that when they look at us, that's what they see. That's what they see. That's what they see. And at a subliminal level, what they see begins to spill over into our brains so that we, at a subliminal level, see each other that way. And indirectly see ourselves that way.
Context of white supremacy.
Now, he's about to interview the author of the book about Planet of the Apes, Eric Green. He's going to interview him. We're going to hear a few minutes of it. Listen.
Gus T. Renegade, Justice in for another program, hopefully to share constructive information. It is rather pitiful, I will say that. It is very pitiful to have a lot of victims, particularly black people, looking forward to having yet another dialogue about racism, white supremacy, and Planet of the Apes. I think these discussions have been going on for way too long. But we are here, and that film did rack up almost $20 million just on Friday, not the whole weekend, just on Friday. Rise of the Planet of the Apes, almost $20 million. That tells you a lot about racism, white supremacy, and if it's going out of business. Our guest for today's program, he has written about this film. Real pleasure to have him on the program. I had some phone tag issues and what have you, but finally we're able to work it out. He is Southern California Regional Director for the Progressive Jewish Alliance. He authored the 2006 publication, Planet of the Apes as American Myth, Race and Politics in the Film and Television Series. And he didn't think we would have enough material for 2 hours. Joining us live, Mr. Eric Green. Mr. Green, are you with us?
I am indeed. How are you all doing?
Hanging in. You are a little low, your volume. If you could speak up a little bit.
Let me see if I can boost this here. Is this any better?
Yes, much better.
All right.
Groovy. Thank you so much again for sharing some of your Sunday evening. Real pleasure to have you on the program to discuss your work and the films. For folks who might not have read your book, might not be familiar with your work, if you wouldn't mind giving some background information before we get started, that would be great.
Yeah, I'm not sure where to start, but basically I became interested. I grew up watching and reading a lot of science fiction films, watching films and reading science fiction books as a kid, and was always interested in the ways in which science fiction was used to talk about political issues that were considered too controversial to talk about directly. And the Planet of the Apes films in particular were films that I was intrigued by as a kid, that I knew that they were first and foremost, trying to tell, science fiction adventure stories that were supposed to be entertainment. But it was clear that there were really kind of primal issues that they were coming back to over and over again around questions of race, around questions of war and peace and fear and prejudice and reconciliation and forgiveness and violence and the root causes of all of these things. And as I got older and I became a writer writing about politics and popular culture and how they influence each other and became a civil rights activist, I just became more intrigued with how popular culture serves as a vehicle for debating political issues, and particularly about how these films were picking up on a lot of the racial conflict and politics of the 1960s and 70s, and were trying to mount a liberal critique of American race relations and American racism in the framework of a science fiction adventure story. And found the more I looked into the films and researched the making of the films, the more rich material that I began to see, and how that the over about 5-6 years when the first films were made, that they had created a kind of counter mythology that was a kind of sustained look at American politics and American race prejudice as a way of talking about issues that were still considered too controversial to have openly in a lot of American film, and how that this films both reflected and commented upon the times, and have stayed relevant and have stayed both continue to capture the imagination of audiences and filmmakers, but how the language of Planet of the Apes keeps coming up in terms of a framework in which people talk about racial anxieties.
So he's explaining it, how the Planet of the Apes is based upon racial conflicts, racial anxieties, things of that nature. Fear, war.
Right.
So there's no doubt of what these movies are really about. It's just that the common average Joe Schmo, who wants to hide from the reality, he or she blocks and no, it can't be talking about us.
There's a saying in the world that Esau uses. He likes to say, art imitates life, and life imitates art.
Right.
All right, and that's truth behind there.
Exactly.
You know?
And what was amazing at the beginning of this, remember the guy said, the white man lets the black man bling or drive a car. It's like giving a monkey a car, a shiny car to drive up the street with, and to bling. It's entertainment.
Right.
You know, white man built the car, trained the monkey how to drive the car.
Same thing with sports. Watch us play sports.
Exactly.
Watch us sing and dance.
So watching a bear on the
Entertainment.
ball,
Exactly.
so watching a little bear on the ball in the circus, right on the ball,
Right.
juggling.
So you know what's good? That's why I wanted an objective person to speak, because somebody watch this and go, "You guys just got attitude.
Making it up.
You're making things up. You just fell with hatred. You're racist. You're all racist." That's what. No, it has nothing to do with that. We speak in the truth. We speak facts. All right. Go ahead. What y'all got?
Yeah, well, there was several points that was made during the beginning of our deliberation on this film, and some of the things that was first mentioned was about how these movies are made, and it is a reflection of the American psyche, if you will. What our people don't realize is that these movies are primarily made not to entertain us. It is made to measure the intellect of our people. That's the reason why these movies are really made. All right, they are not bums that's sitting in these recording studios and so forth. These people have extensive knowledge of on various subjects, including biblical history and history in general, and they are very familiar with the era that the bishop had mentioned, like the 60s and the 70s. I was also paying attention to some of the commentary that you was bringing out on how during the 60s and the 70s, how they were working to manipulate the people's thinking. And drugs is also a part of that, because drugs was introduced during the same time that era pretty much was the era that they said we got to put these quote unquote Negroes or apes to sleep. That's basically what they were saying. And if they couldn't manipulate it with these particular television shows, they did it with drugs, along with the educational system. You were mentioning about how they caused us to primarily go into these low-level jobs, things like that. All of that is a part of this whole industry that is geared to make us into the apes, as they will. but at the same time they understand biblical prophecy. So this particular movie, all three of them. I didn't see the first. I don't really recall too much. I don't even think I saw the first two. But this last one that I saw kind of bridged the gap of what I didn't see in the other ones, because they all in a particular sequel. But all of it is suggestive of how they see the biblical prophecies coming to pass, that these same apes are the Israelites that the Bible speaks about. That's what they're depicting in these movies. It was absolutely amazing, and it shows you, like Captain Zephaniah was pointing out, and we saw that in the movie. Some of the apes, if you will, had on their back donkey, and that's Isaiah 1 and 3. Can we get that? Isaiah chapter 1 and 3.
Right.
Because they know, like I said, they know this Bible, and they know their system. Edomites and white folks, for the most part, they know why they're going to the movie. That's the reason why it's grossing so much money, because they know what they're looking for. Most of our people are going to these movies and don't know what the hell they're seeing. They're just going because Jim Bob said we should go, or they saw that it was popular. So let's just go, and they'll come out of the movie just as confused as they were when they went in. But Edomites, the so-called white men, they know exactly, the majority of them, they know what they're going to watch. Isaiah 1 and 3. This is what I'm reading this scripture because it depicts what the captain had mentioned about what was written on the back. Read.
Isaiah chapter 1 verse 3. The ox knoweth his owner.
This is God speaking about the Israelites. God says that the ox knoweth his owner. The ox knows where he gets his strength from. The ox knows who feeds him. It was a very dumb animal, but yet the ox knows these things. Go ahead.
And the ass his master's crib.
And the jackass knows where his land is at. In comparison to us, we don't know as a people where our strength lies. We don't realize that the Most High is our God, and then we are his people, known as the Israelites. We don't know that. Neither do we know where our land is. Go ahead.
But Israel does not know.
The Israelites that sat in that movie and watched it, they don't know that they're looking at their own history right there on the screen, which is indicative of the word they wrote the word history 3 times. In the movie.
Turner wrote it down.
Right. They had it written on a stone or something. I saw that.
And he said, you don't read much. You're not much of a reader, are you?
He was talking about black people. That's what he was talking about, the Israelites. That's what that part meant.
That's a cut right there.
That's what that part meant. So like I said, they don't put these movies together for your entertainment. They don't give a damn about entertaining us at all. They use it to measure our intelligence so that they could tweak their books. If we're waking up too much, they'll tell the education. They'll tell the educators and the curriculum builders and so forth. They'll tell them, well, adjust the teaching this way to put them back to sleep. They don't want us too dumb, and they don't want us too smart. But they want us in that middle ground so that we'll be happy driving around in a shiny car, being still seen as a monkey.
And may I elaborate on what you said? You watch it, and that scene where he goes, "You're not much of a reader, are you?" He had a like a Jax. He had like a strategic, like a war board, pretty much, on how to strategize. Because the whole purpose of the movie was, he said, this natural order of things is, if we fall, y'all rule over us. There's no equality. See, the so-called white man understands there's no equality among races. Someone has to dominate. Someone has to rule, and they didn't want to be the monkeys. Also, the very same Genesis breath of life that gave the monkeys their wisdom, it caused the humans, or the enemy, Edom, to become primitive and weak and inferior. So it was called the simian flu. That's what it became, the simian flu. So the fear of the whole movie, the whole fear of the movie is, in even part 2, the sergeant, the general, was to make certain that the monkeys do not rise above the humans. That's the objective, and to keep us in that weak. In this movie, they were slaves. In this movie, they were in cages. They were chained together. They were working. Slave labor, being whipped. The movie's giving you all the black folks go to the movies, watch the movie, and they don't catch nothing. They don't catch any concept of the movie.
Can I say something also? Yeah. In the very beginning of the movie, you know it's about us because the two soldiers, it was one Judah and it was the other one was Ephraim. That's representing our
two
people.
kingdoms, right.
The very beginning of the movie is telling you it's about you.
Now, what you said about, you brought it up about the word history being written 3 times on the wall, and then the colonel begins to list or name strategic
generals.
military leaders.
Yes.
Like
Custard.
Right.
Right,
He said you
Custard.
don't read very much,
Right.
right.
Not much of a reader.
He said you're not much of a reader, and he says this whole thing is about dominance,
Yeah.
racial dominance.
Yes.
Most people don't understand the term racism. They think, oh, it just means prejudice, it's hate.
Yeah.
No, the word race is telling you what it means. The root of the word racism is race. A race is a competition between individuals to win a goal. In this context, racism is a competition between nations of people or races for racial dominance. Everyone seeks racial dominance. That's what racism is about. Right now, it's the white man. He's in the lead. Our people, we're way back there. We're so far back you can't see us. We ain't even in the race.
You know what's crazy too? As we watching the movie, right? Because Deacon Yawasop made the point that Esau makes these movies to gauge
Right. Exactly.
how much we know or understand of what we're seeing, right? And the only ones cheering for the apes was us in the movie, in
Right.
the movie theater.
Exactly.
The only time you got a reaction from the crowd in the movie theater was when the apes did something funny.
Right.
That's the only time they laughed.
Exactly. And you know what? When I was in the parking lot, there were white people and black coming out of the theater from that. And you could see the difference in the interracial couples coming out. The white person
In the
was
relationship.
somewhat in a relationship, somewhat uneasy
Yes.
in their face,
'Cause
and the
with
black
the
person is clueless. Like, what's wrong, dear? What's wrong? Our people are dumb as a rock. As I'm sitting in the car, like, you dummy.
The same thing with the movie
Right.
Get Out.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Exactly. See, the quote unquote interracial couple will be driving home and they be like, all this time I'm with an ape.
Yes,
Dang.
exactly.
And when you watch it, you know that if you watch it, those kind of movies can cause racial tensions. So what happens is in each one, I notice, not only is there in a positive light, there's a unity, a unifying spirit. The movie's giving you a message of unity coming together. He always said in the movie, apes together strong. That goes back to Ezekiel 37. But one element the enemy always puts in movies is there's always a good Edomite.
Yes.
Always.
Yes.
In part one, you had his master was the good one.
Yeah.
Then in part two, you had the other guy, the soldier trying to help him, part two, and he says to him, he goes, you gotta go. We can't be friends. And he disappears into the darkness. That's in part two, the good soldier. Then in part three, you had the little girl.
Yeah.
Everyone, little Susie, whatever her name was, the mute, Nova, the mutie. One that's mute the whole movie. The mutie. She's there. She's the innocent one helping them. But every movie, they want to make certain that they keep Negroes inspired, but not inspired enough to go, hey, you're the enemy. They go, see Negro, there's some good ones. That's I watched the movie. I noticed that a lot. Not just that one, but even in the old ones, they did the same thing. It's always the good one. Because in the old one, the heathens were slaves.
Right.
But then he said, well, that one's a good one. So Charlton Heston, he's the good one.
And you know
I
what's
noticed
funny
that.
too? In the movie, right, subconsciously they want you to be nice to Esau because everybody, all the apes were being nice to the little girl. Right? The big Lucas ape, he
Lucas,
gave
yeah.
her a flower.
Maurice.
Maurice
No, Lucas.
saved her.
Yeah,
Maurice,
Maurice.
saved
Yeah,
her.
yeah, yeah.
Lucas gave her a flower.
Right.
And then she fed Caesar.
Right.
So
Exactly.
subconsciously it's like there's
There's
good
still
Edomites.
good ones out
Yeah.
there.
Exactly.
And but the blatant point to make in that point that you're making about how we were guided to love Esau,
Right.
but with the little girl. What about the dialogue that took place between the two when he said that I kill for a reason? What
The
I
colonel?
can't remember.
Colonel,
Right,
Colonel
the
McCullough.
colonel. Right, and
Caesar.
Right, and Caesar. And he was making the point. He said, "What was the thing that he said? There was something that was said in there that we talked about. Some of us
About
talked
his
about
son?
it. Yes, and he said about the
You're
reason
so
why he killed-
emotional.
That
Yeah.
part. That part. So, could y'all remember the lines
Yeah,
of
the-
that?
the
What
scene-
was the point? Of,
The discussion was basically that the simian flu was just within every human was converting to inferior creatures, and he noticed that in his son. He had to make a choice. He said, "What I'll do is this virus will spread. My son has it. I have to kill him. And once I killed my son, my only born son, I killed him. I gained clarity. I gained purpose,
Mhm.
and that drove him to basically annihilate not only monkeys but humans who tried to humans alike.
Yeah,
That
he
gave
said
him
it
this
also
drive.
gave his people purpose.
Right.
Because they saw what he did to, for the mission. So
Right.
it gave
So
everybody
right.
else drive.
The point that I'm getting at is that he told him the reason why he had to kill his son,
Right.
and that's what I wanted to get to. He had to tell him the reason why. he
Oh
had to do
yes,
it.
the scene
Right.
of the monkey sees his son.
Right.
He says, he goes, if killing your son was the destiny of your son ruling an
That's
unholy
the part.
kingdom, then I'm glad I did it.
So here's the reason why I wanted to bring that in contrast to the Edomite. He did it, and he understood why he did it. How come we don't have that understanding with this Edomite girl that's with us? She should have been wiped out too.
Right.
If he had that understanding to wipe out his son, why are we sparing this one? The movie did not show that at all. You see?
But also, even the colonel called the apes' kingdom an unholy kingdom.
Right. You see that?
Anything outside of their rulership is unholy to them.
Right. Where's that scripture in Peter? As you said that, an unholy kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
In Peter, by the nation, a kingdom of, where's that at?
First Peter 2.
Yeah. Get that, Joel?
King of Kings
I'm not holy kingdom.
Holy
Peter
Kingdom?
2.
1 Peter chapter 2, verse 5.
Yeah.
Let me hear it.
Ye also, as lively stones, are built up a spiritual house.
Wait, First Peter's what?
2 verse 5.
Let me see if that's what I want. No, that ain't what I want. Let me see. Started, I want 9 and 10. That's what I want. Listen good.
1 Peter chapter 2 verse 9. But ye are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, and holy nation.
So he said we were going to have an unholy kingdom. The Bible says no, we're going to have a holy nation. Go ahead.
A peculiar people.
A peculiar people because we were given peculiar laws, which set us above all nations. In the movie, though the chimps, the apes, had that spirit to evolve them. Go ahead.
That ye should show forth the praises of him who have called you out of darkness.
Called you out of being a chimp, out of being a Negro.
Donkey.
Go ahead. A donkey.
into his marvelous light.
Now watch the next verse.
When in time past,
Not when. It doesn't say when.
which in time past were not a people.
Remember, they kept calling the apes subhuman.
Right.
They called us 3/5 of a man.
Exactly.
Which in time past were not a people, but
But are now the people of
you
God.
hear that, Mr. and Mrs. White Man? We are now the people of God. I hope you're listening. James, Esau, Volk, all of you. What are they? Alt-right Christians. We are now the people of God. Go ahead.
Which had not obtained mercy.
We didn't obtain mercy when you was whipping us, shackling us, shooting us with water hoses like they did in Rise of the Planet of Apes. Remember they showed the apes getting hosed down.
hoses, yeah.
They showed that during the Watch Riot, during many of the black revolts, hosing us, the civil rights movement, hosing us down with water hoses. Then in this one, they show Caesar getting whipped
Yep.
by
By
taskmasters,
his own people.
by his own
Yep,
people.
exactly.
And right,
That was
Crucified.
crucified.
That
Just
was
like
some-
they did the Israelites.
Yep.
And
they
they-
did it like they did the Christ.
And they sent in the apes to do the work of the humans. They
Yeah,
sent in the apes
taskmasters.
They
to
did,
beat
that's what
the
they
other
did to us in
monkeys.
slavery. Right.
Taskmasters.
They sent in other apes to beat the monkeys. That goes back to Exodus. But the taskmaster is the same thing to establish some hatred or superiority above the apes among themselves.
That's heavy. So what was so heavy about, during the 60s where they held up the fist of black power, the symbol for the apes was 2 fists, like that,
strong.
together strong, apes together strong. But they used 2, all that was symbolic.
Yep.
The kingdom.
They, what? I don't know, go ahead.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Here's Ezekiel. Ezekiel 34. So 37, 34. About apes together strong. Ezekiel 34. Verse, where is it? It's been a while. Ezekiel 34. Verse, together. Together. Where is it?
What does it say?
34.
37:22, you think?
Let me get this here. Yes, 22. 37, 22. That's it.
Ezekiel chapter 37 verse 22. And I will make them one nation in the land, and upon the mountains of Israel, and one king shall be king to them
That's
all.
Christ, go ahead.
And they shall be no more two nations.
Divided. Go ahead.
Neither shall they be divided into two kingdoms anymore at all.
That's why he had two fists up. It was both kingdoms. He said apes together. That was the chant. They would say apes together, strong. And they would go like this because they said we can't put one fist. That's too obvious.
Right.
They're gonna put two fists in instead. But the blacks
It was a deeper meaning.
the blacks
Right.
who are the elite, which would be the Israelites,
Right.
who are elite, they'll catch on.
We knew what it
The
meant.
Negroes, the donkeys out in the world out there,
Right.
sunken placers,
Right.
they're not gonna know what the hell is going on.
Right.
But the brothers and sisters who are in the truth will understand what it means as apes together strong, both kingdoms together strong.
It's amazing that you mentioned the sunken place because that's what the bottom of Isaiah, which we didn't finish, but I'll just mention it, which goes along with what the bishop said about what he noticed people coming out of the theater. Coming out of, you got quote unquote interracial couples, white woman, black man. They come out of the theater and she has a total different look, countenance. That's the right word, countenance, because her thinking is different as she comes out. And the brother is totally clueless. He doesn't understand why, what's wrong, nothing. He's not picking up on anything, which goes with the scriptures there, where it says, "My people doth not consider." Esau counts on our ignorance to that point. Even the woman that's with him, she just knows that her black counterpart, or ape in her mind now because of the movie, her ape counterpart ain't picking up on nothing. He's like, "What's wrong, baby? Mine all over the place." And she's looking at him like, "Damn, all this time my parents told me not to deal with this."
There's
that
a
kind of thing.
big difference between black people and white people. And people going to get mad when I say this. But when it comes to picking up things, many times white people are 10 steps ahead of us.
Yes.
Get that in Psalms 64
Deep.
about the thought of every one of them. They are 10 steps, like when we read the color of Christ, just for example, we will read the color of Christ. Black people's response is, so, color doesn't matter. White people's thought is, that means we're going into slavery. You're racist! That's what they do. Because they know if the Bible's teaching Christ is black, that means justice is coming. They think of it quick like that. Black people like, so, it doesn't mean anything. Read that for me.
Psalm 64 verse 5. They encourage themselves in an evil matter. They commune of laying snares privily. They say, who shall see them? They search out iniquities. They accomplish a diligent search.
Here it comes.
Both the inward thought of every one of them and the heart is deep.
The inward thought of every one of them is deep. They think way ahead of us. All right? This is why society is the way it is. And we can't figure out, like, the investing in stocks. Our people are like, I don't get it. I'm confused. They're trafficking imports and exports, foreign aid. The way they set the system up is beyond the average Joe. Okay? Because of why? The thought of every one of them is deep, just like God prophesied it would be. You had something?
I wanted to say something on what you just said about what the bishop has mentioned is 100% correct. And there's a few things that lend to it. Number one, because we broke God's law, so it caused us to fall into the negative parts of God's blessings. And the other thing is that the educational system, which is set up by our enemies, have also worked to aid us in our ignorance. The bishop had made, and this is definitely true, that there is a major difference. He mentioned about Esau thinks 10 steps, and I'd say that minimal, 10 steps ahead of our people. And there's a reason why. It's because Esau has to think this way. Because if they have a society to run, and they know that this is their rulership, they can't play games with thinking on small levels. They are trying to keep this. So if they're trying to keep this, their mind has got to be on paying attention to everything out here. Everything out here could be a threat to their rulership. So they're not playing with you. They have to think this way. We have been educated or indoctrinated to just be a part of their world and be satisfied with their world. Be satisfied with the crumbs that they give us. We ought to be satisfied, like you was talking about being in their cars and all of that. We're just happy to put some bling on us. We're just happy to be in it because this is where we belong. So the mindsets are totally different. One is thinking about world rulership and dominance and how to keep it. The other one is just happy to be a part of your world,
Right.
the way you shape it for me to be in.
Now you mentioned world dominance, right?
Yes.
Leadership. The so-called black man. Listen how he or she thinks. They always talk about voting. We got the right to vote. Anything that goes wrong in black society, you'll hear a coon say, "Well, brother, did you vote? I got beat up by the police. Well, did you vote? My kid got kicked out of school. Well, did you listen?" Voting is nothing. I'm going to show you how deep white people think. White people, Edomites, as the Bible calls them, says, you know what? Black people are really not citizens. Let's make them think they are. Let's have their voting rights expire every several years. Black people ain't figured that out yet. Chinese votes don't expire. White people's votes don't expire. No other nation's voting rights expires but ours. Our voting rights expire in the year 2031. Look it up, nigga. So, because we don't like reading stuff. We got, and the next thing, even remember the presidency. You said, which is correct. This white man he harnessed all his forces, all the forces of Satan to get the United States of America.
Yes.
You think he's going to leave this country in the hands of some voting Negroes?
No.
No. They go like this. Here's the president. They go, let's choose this guy. Put him in the front. But meanwhile, you got a panel of for lack of better words, a secret government behind him, made up
Shadow
of
government,
a
right.
shadow government made up of corporations who elect. Like, remember during the Trump,
Right.
he didn't get put in there by the popular vote
No.
because Hillary won the popular vote. Trump got in there by the
Electoral.
the electoral college vote.
Yes.
That's who you really don't know who they are. They're the ones that said this is who's going to be in office. Our people ain't figured it out yet. We right to vote. My ancestors died for the right to vote. You coon.
That happened again. That happened with Bush.
Right,
With,
Bush
right.
and-
It happened
what was the
during
other guy?
Bush and Gore.
Yeah.
The same thing
Gore
happened
won
there.
all the votes, and then
Boom.
a couple hours later they say Bush won.
And he said he was going to win on
Right,
a plane.
right.
He said,
His-
"Oh, we're
his-
going to get
his-
Florida."
His uncle,
Yeah.
I mean,
Got it.
his brother fixed it.
Yeah,
in Florida.
Jeb Bush.
Jeb
Yeah.
Bush.
So like God says, the thought of every one of them is deep. What you gonna say?
When you watch the movie also, especially part three began to revolve around the dependence that the apes had on Caesar. They realized that he was a leader and that he was the one that was going to lead them to their freedom. And they kept saying, listen, we're not gonna, if you're going to leave, we're going to go with you. He had like three of his main men. It was Maurice,
Lucas.
Luca, and someone, and I forgot the other one's
Cookie.
name. And Cookie, right. The one that was rebellious and won, the bully,
Right.
was his right-hand man in this one.
Right.
So, in the scene, there's a scene where, saving the oppressor, saving Edom, Cookie comes in, and he causes like a beat up, and he gets thrown in jail with Caesar. And he goes, you good now? To Caesar, they're both locked up. They're in prison. He goes, you good now? And then Caesar's like, yeah. He goes, good. Let's discuss how we're gonna get out of here together. That whole scene was bad
That was
because the same one who was the pimp, the rebellious one in part one, who convinced Maurice there was no unity, became like the most reliable friend and assistant to Caesar in the mission to free the people. And they freed the children first. But I want to get something real quick. 2 Ezra 5 and verse 17 to show that this reliance on leadership has always been something that Israel had since our beginning. Since with Moses as our leader, then from Moses, Israel, we always acquire a leader. Christ, of course, is our king. He's our leader. But the Most High in His Spirit always sets up men with special spirits to lead the people. As you could say, a rehearsal to guide us into what's going to be established in the kingdom, having leaders. The 2 Ezra 5, and I want verse 17. Now, during this instance is when Ezra was seeking understanding from the Lord on basically the last days, leading into 2 Ezra 6 and 9, and in the beginning, because even in the movie, he goes, Esau, the military, he goes, we are the beginning and the end. Because remember, it says his thoughts are deep. Because Esau sees it in this race as not only am I winning in the beginning of the race, I'm going to be at the end of the race also. I'm going to always be dominant. That's why they had the Alpha and Omega symbol, because they believe that they're going to rule forever. That they're the Alpha and Omega when Christ is our Alpha and Omega. But they believe they're the Alpha and Omega. But the point is that Esau always understands you need leadership. But our forefathers, when we were in our right mind, before we became donkeys and sunken place people, we relied on leadership as well. 2 Ezra 5 and 17.
2 Ezra chapter 5, verse 17. Knowest thou not that Israel is committed unto thee in the land of their captivity?
This is Captain Salakia. He was asking Ezra, listen, you can't leave us. Don't you realize how important you are? Read again.
Knowest thou not that Israel is committed unto thee in the land of their captivity?
Go ahead.
Up then, and eat bread, and forsake us not, as the shepherd that leaveth his flock in the hands of cruel wolves.
So Salakia, being a captain, said, listen, you can't leave us. You're the shepherd. If you leave us, it's like leaving us in the hands of cruel wolves. We're sheep. You're the shepherd. You can't do that. So in part 3, in this one, Caesar was so engulfed in his anger and rage, he lost focus and caused his people to get taken captive by the colonel. And he says, damn, what have I done? That's in the movie. He goes, what have I done? Because he lost focus. He almost became like Koba was in part 2. Koba was so enraged and bitter, he lost sight of the mission, which was to keep the people free and safe from human destruction. That was the concept. So throughout the movie, not only does it inspire unity, it also inspires people to understand when they need to be led, learning how to be led. Because Israel, even till now, we despise being told what to do. That was one of our downfalls. Being told the Most High says go right, we want to go left. Most High says go up, we want to go down. Moses said this, we're going to do that. That was our downfall. That led us into the condition we're in now, despising leadership, despising not wanting to be led. So throughout the movie, you see that when the people depended on Caesar, like even there was a scene also when he said, give them food and water before they work. Mm-hmm. Colonel said, no, they're gonna work first and then they get food and water after. He says, give them food and water. And he was dying himself. They had him out crucified in the cold, freezing all night, which kind of resembles Soviet slave when they had him hanging all the time on the tree.
Yeah, right.
It's the same concept. Mm-hmm. Black folks don't watch movies like this. They don't see things spiritually. Yes. But they were basically saying, listen, he could give them food and water. So the colonel put the gun to his head. And then Caesar was like, the hell with it. Put his head like this. They just kill me then. Then the people grabbed the rocks. He said, hurry, hurry. They realized how important he was. They realized how important Caesar was. And then in the end, when they got food and water, she said, you saved our lives. Because they realized that he was going to die for them to get food and water. Caesar understood love thy neighbor as thyself. He understood that.
You just, the deacon just said a heavy point, how a large majority of blacks are unable to view a movie like we just seen it with our spiritual eyes open. Now, what makes our spiritual eyes open is, of course, the Bible. And that brings me to part 1, the first 8 movie. Remember when he had that bottle, the Genesis bottle? Yes. And that caused the apes' eyes to become open, which is the phenomenon that they mentioned in the Willie Lynch letter. Yes. So the phenomenon occurred right now with the Israelites. That's why we're able to watch movies like this and give you the spiritual understanding.
Right. And the simian flu, remember he says that the simian flu, which made the apes or gave them their enlightenment, caused them to rise as a people based on Revelations 11 and Ezekiel, would cause them to fall and become inferior as a people and not be able to speak anymore. That speech goes into them lying to us, teaching us false doctrines. That's that loss of speech goes into them no longer indoctrinating us and telling us lies that they've been doing. That silences the enemy. It silences the voice of the enemy. That's what his whole fear was. That's the whole fear of the. That's why it drove him to try to kill the apes and to keep this unholy kingdom from rising up on the earth.
So now when we get near let me know if I'm jumping ahead, but when we get near the end of the movie, Caesar, he gets shot by the man whose life he spared.
Yes.
The Ephraimite whose life he spared. Give me that scripture about the Isaiah 59, though the enemy come in. You know what I want?
Yeah. 19.
Where is it?
I think it's verse 19.
Is it chapter 59?
19. Yeah, 59 verse 19.
Let me make sure that's it.
That's it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Isaiah 59 verse 19. So shall they fear the name of the Lord from the west.
This proves that the Israelites a portion of the Israel would be in the western hemisphere, right, which is here, right?
And his glory from the rising of the sun.
And his glory from the rising of the sun, which is the east, right?
When the enemy shall come in like a flood.
Now, at the end of the movie, remember, Esau, the army came in like a freaking flood to kill everybody. That's what they were doing. When the enemy shall come in like a flood, go ahead.
The Spirit of the Lord shall lift up a standard against him.
Or out of nowhere, a daggone avalanche came
came
and
down.
killed everybody.
See that?
That's some heavy stuff. That's why we can't worry about Esau, what they going to do. Esau, we ain't worried about you. The Lord got this.
Right.
Notice Caesar stood up, had no fear.
Right.
He stood up like this, and there was no fear he had whatsoever of those men, of the whole
right.
that army.
One of the things that we have to is to remember as a people is that there is a God, and the Most High has outlined in His Bible our deliverance. But one of the reasons why our people don't pick up on things like this is because the educational system, or the indoctrinational system, I should call it, has subconsciously taught us that the order of this society is fixed, meaning that it can't be broken. We think that this is going to be it forever. And being that we feel that way as a people, we don't look beyond the reality of what Esau painted for us, many of us. We feel that this society is fixed and inescapable. And as a result of that, we seek to get high to escape the ugly reality that our spirit feels. We feel the suffering. The reason why one would even want to get high or take drugs is because they want to escape the ugly reality that they're in. So there is a problem going on in us spiritually, but because we feel like that the order is fixed, we don't give any real thought to getting delivered. We don't give any real thought to what the Most High said about our deliverance. So when we was talking about voting, our people think that our people know that voting don't work. We talked about the election with Gore and Bush. That showed you then. Then they did it again with Hillary and Trump. So it's always been going on. But anytime some atrocity go on in our communities or whatever, and we talk about, listen, let us turn back to the Lord, some coon will come up and say, well, what about voting? When you know that doesn't work. But the reason why we do it is because we feel, as a people, we feel that the order is fixed. Let me just sound like I want deliverance, but in my mind and in my spirit, I really don't believe that we can really get out of this. So we say dumb things. And that keeps us asleep. You know, this goes into Lamentations. Let me read that scripture. Lamentations 4:17. This is what's wrong with our people. Lamentations 4:17. We know that this voting means nothing, you know. But then we say in our spirit, well, what choice do we have? Go ahead, read.
Lamentations 4 verse 17. As for us, our eyes as yet failed for our vain help.
You hear that? Read it again.
As for us,
as us Israelites. I'm talking about us black people in this country, because we know where our hope is. We know that the deliverance, according to the Bible, is going to come down. And they make a movie showing you that. Read it again.
As for us, our eyes as yet failed for our vain help.
You see that? Vain help. Meaning help that you're not going to get. That's what it means when it says vain help. You're not going to get any help in the system. Go ahead.
In our watching, we have watched for a nation that cannot save us.
And that's where our mind is at. Our mind is, we are watching for a nation that is not interested in saving us. They will not, this nation will not save us, and it cannot save us. But yet we continue to watch it because we feel like we have no other way. Give me that dope. Give me that drugs. Let me escape this ugliness because I know I'm not going anywhere.
Right. And one more thing to the end of the movie. One more thing. He says, he goes, the colonel, he states, the Caesar asks him, that other army you're referring to is not here to join you, are they? They're here to go against you because they don't like your practices. He goes, yes, they are against me. He goes, but they fear you more than me, he says. And then those two armies go to war with each other. As the apes are getting the deliverance and being freed, you have these two enemies warring with each other. This is 2 Ezra 13, real quick, and verse 31, real quick, because that goes into how we're going to be delivered. During war between the nations, our enemies are going to be warring among themselves, and while they're warring with each other, we're going to get delivered. That's what that whole scene was about. He goes, even though we're fighting each other, they don't like how my practices are. Same with America. They don't like America's practices. Russia's not in agreement with America, but guess what? They're going to go to war with each other, but while they're fighting each other, you're going to get deliverance. It's the same concept. 2nd Ezra 13 and 31.
2nd Ezra chapter 13, verse 31. And one shall undertake to fight against another, and one city against another, one place against another, one people against another, and one realm against another.
Okay.
And the time shall be when these things shall come to pass, and the signs shall happen, which I showed thee before. And then shall my son be declared, whom thou sawest as a man that ascended.
Now that you know, we don't.
And when all the people hear his voice, every man shall in their own land leave the battle they have one against another. And an innumerable
You
multitude
saw the end of the movie. Go ahead.
shall be gathered together, as thou sawest them, willing to come, and to overcome him by fighting.
Him is talking about Christ. That's not in the movie. But the point is that you had during the movie, while the monkeys were getting their freedom, you had realms and armies fighting each other. And that's going to happen in the last days, even so now. You're going to have a war all over again. And in the end, both got destroyed. Both armies got destroyed, and we saw the promised land.
Yep.
Caesar went, they caught over the mountaintop. He sees people get there. Him and Maurice are watching people get to the promised land. And Maurice says to him, I'm going to tell your son what you did for your people. You're not going to forget what you've done. And Caesar sat there, and he was like Moses. Moses got to the mountaintop, watched people get into the land. He didn't make it over. Caesar didn't make it over. Moses didn't make it over. But he got a chance to see them get in.
Right. Can we read that?
That was super heavy.
Deuteronomy 34 and 4. Because like you said, they show all of the apes going to the promised land. And that was Martin Luther King's last speech.
Yep.
Oh,
Mountaintop
man.
speech.
For real. That's
Yep.
right. He sure
And he
did.
said, I might not get there with you, but we as a people should get
But
to
he
the
said, but we as a people. He didn't say all nations.
Right.
He said we as a people. That he was
realized.
speaking to Israel. Then
Exactly.
we as a people will get to the promised
At
land.
that moment, he wasn't donkey no more.
And he
at that
said,
moment.
right, he said, I'm not afraid of that. They killed him the next day, by the way.
Yeah.
The next day he was assassinated.
Read that.
34.
And 4.
Deuteronomy chapter 34, verse 4. And the Lord said unto him, This is the land which I swear unto Abraham, and unto Isaac, and unto Jacob, saying, I will give it unto thy seed. I have caused thee to see it with thine eyes, but thou shalt not go over thither.
So Moses died there.
Yeah.
He didn't go into the promised land. So they took that and put it in the movie.
Yes.
Caesar saw the promised land. He saw all the apes. They were all rejoicing. And he knew he wasn't going to make it. And he died right there.
Yep.
That's a heavy scene.
Yep.
That was a heavy scene.
It almost looked like they were showing the River Jordan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They were showing it right there.
I
yeah.
tell you, man, I looked at it. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I said, man, this man is putting clues all over the screen.
Yeah.
Too
I
many
know
clues.
Too many.
Too many.
People gonna leave out that theater, they ain't gonna catch nothing.
So, as we close out, the unity of our peoples is paramount, is very indicative for our salvation. Zephaniah said, gather yourselves together, O nation not desired. One of the reasons we cannot organize ourselves, what's the word?
Successfully.
That word. Damn. I got big teeth, I'm sorry. Listen, give me 1 Corinthians 1:10. This is what we're always missing. You got some people want to be Muslim. Some of us want to be Christians. Some of us want to be Buddhists and Catholics and Democrats and Republicans and coons. Yeah, tycoons.
Cool with a tie.
Watch this.
1 Corinthians 1, verse 10. Now I beseech you, brethren, by the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, that ye all speak the same thing.
See, that's one thing blacks and Latinos, we have not figured that out. We must all speak the same thing. Go ahead.
And that there be no divisions among you.
And there be no divisions among you. That's a commandment. That's a law. Go ahead.
But that ye be perfectly joined together in the same mind and in the same judgment.
You see that? So we all got to be saying the same thing. We can't be saying, well, I'm a Muslim Republican. You're a Christian Democrat. All that foolishness got to stop. Get Ephesians 4:3. Our people, just like the Million Man March. Now, I applaud Louis Farrakhan for being able to mobilize 1 million black men. The effort. It's admirable. However, it's pointless and useless because we're never united. Why? Because of this.
Ephesians 4 verse 3. Endeavoring to keep the unity of the Spirit and the bond of peace.
That word unity, y'all, you may use the word solidarity. God uses the easy word, easy to be understood, unity. Go ahead.
There is one body.
There's one body, meaning one nation. We are one body of people, one nation of people. Go ahead.
And one Spirit.
And we are of one spirit. Go ahead.
Even as ye are called in one hope of your calling.
One hope of our. Notice it's single-minded. It's single. Everything we're listing here is a single thing, which we all must say the same thing and come together as one. Go ahead.
One Lord.
One Lord.
One faith.
One faith.
One baptism.
One baptism.
One God.
One God.
And Father of all, who is above all and through all and in you all.
Until we can apply these basic principles of unity, we will never be able to gather ourselves together as one. And the Bible prophesies 2/3 of our people shall die here in this land. 2 out of every 3 of our people shall die. Why? Because we want to be Pan-Africanists. We want to be Kemetic. We want to be Egyptologists. We want to be everything except what God Almighty prophesies and says we are. Anybody got something to add to that?
No, just that movie inspires Israel to work together as one. Because you watch the movie, the apes that were divided, they were getting humiliated, they were getting killed, they were put out in the cold and the cross, freezing to death. And that's what happens when you're divided. You have to work. That's what a monkey in the end that saved Caesar. He said he goes, you think when these humans kill up all the apes, they're gonna let you live? He goes, they're gonna kill you too. He goes, I'm about myself. He goes, I saved myself. He goes, how much you left to save? Like where are you? Where are you? So that's when he made him think and he walked off. The big one, the donkey one.
He had a moment of clarity.
Yeah,
that
but
moment.
you know what's heavy about that? Remember at the beginning of the movie, I forgot, we got to backtrack. Remember Caesar said, these apes are the ones that was with Cobra.
Yeah.
Cobra got killed. They were mad at Caesar, so they'd rather join their oppressor
Rather than come back.
than come back to Caesar.
Yep.
Have we seen that?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we've seen that.
Yeah. Dozens of times.
We've seen that.
You have brothers and sisters among us get angry, run off with a coup, and get so mad when that coup falls apart because it goes nowhere. They get so angry. Rather than repent and come back, they say, I'm rather join the devil, the white man, against them. That's what's going on.
Rather get branded a donkey.
Right. So you got the word,
Exactly.
hey, you know who you are. Brand the word donkey on your back
And on your forehead.
and on your forehead, you jackass.
And the reason it's in the movies is because Esau knows how our people get down.
Right.
They studied the psychology of the so-called Negro. That's why he's able to put these things in the movie. You know, he knows that we're going to betray one another. He knows instead of, rectifying the situation and coming back together, that Negroes rather join the enemy. So that's why he's able to put these things in the movies.
Yeah. And only some will get it.
Let me just say this here real quick. The bishop had read out of the scriptures about how we all have to be in one thought and in unity, like the Bible uses not some long, big term, the word unity, something easy to understand, and that's what we just read. We have to be in order, in one mind, so that we can move as a collective under God's laws. We are taught to think of me, myself, and I as separate individuals. The Edomites, to the contrary, they believe in one thought. Their whole mind state is of the Cristobal Columbus philosophy. Take all of the wealth and enslave everybody, and that's how you can live like fat cats at the expense of everyone else's labor. I say that because our people need to get it in their head that these movies or anything that they do in this society is not geared at all for entertaining you, providing you a good time, none of that at all. It is solely there to measure how much you know. If you know too much, then they have to tweak their education, they have to tweak their religions, have to tweak their books, have to tweak television commercials, games, whatever, to put you back to sleep. That's what it's all about. And that's just the way it is. So when we talk about movies like this, or movies in general, or even history, or anything that's taught out here, it is never for your benefit. It is only to your detriment to continue to make you subservient to them. So with that understanding, we need to come back to where the truth is, meaning in the Bible, so that we can get our minds right. This Bible, like the book of Malachi, can you just give me that real quick? And I'm going to close with this. Malachi chapter, the last chapter, when it speaks about remember ye. Read that for me, because that's what this is talking about here. We got to get our minds right. You have to realize that you're the Israelites, that you were not brought to this country or brought anywhere in this society to become a part of it. Like the scriptures also say, arise ye and depart, for this is not your rest. You got it? 4 and 4.
Malachi chapter 4, verse 4. Remember ye the law of Moses my servant, which I commanded unto him in Horeb for all Israel, with the statutes and judgments.
Go ahead.
Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet, before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord.
So the Bible is speaking about Elijah the prophet would have to come in these days to do what? Before the what? Before the what?
Before the great and dreadful day of the Lord.
Before the great and dreadful day of the Lord, destruction. That's what that avalanche in that movie was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that was about. Read.
And he shall turn the heart of the fathers to the children, and the heart of the children to their fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse.
So what is the message that the Most High is bringing out of the Bible? The Israelites that was brought over here in captivity, the Most High is saying, listen, I need to gather you and bring you back to your base, bring you back to home. And I'm going to have this Bible around for you to get it. That's the message. So it is not in TV. It is not in these movies. It's not in sports and in your fancy sports cards. None of that at all. Your mind is supposed to be reconnected back to the Bible. Reconnected in repentance. That's what the message is about. So wake up, Israel. Shalom.
Shalom.
No, I didn't mean that. I was just talking about with me.
No, we can end it.
Okay.
That was good.
All right.
Shalom.
Okay. That was good. So we can have this.
Shalom. This is Bishop Nathaniel of Israel United in Christ. Please subscribe to our YouTube channels. Stay up to date with our latest events, music, and classroom lessons. IUIC plans to continue visiting different countries where this gospel has not been preached before. IUIC needs your help in pushing this truth. So join us. Subscribe to our Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and podcasts, and stay up to date with us. For more information, please visit www.israelunite.org.